Welcome to the Recycle Podcast, where we discuss everyday issues from a mental health perspective. We are your hosts, Dr. Rashonda Strickland,
Dr. LaFanya Jones-Hines,
and Dr. Nichelle Wall. Now, don't get it twisted. We're not going to be your stereotypical therapist.
What we will be is informative, down to earth, a little spicy, and vulnerable.
All right, interns, turn up your volume, grab your pen and paper. It's supervision time. As a reminder, this podcast is not meant to take the place of a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Welcome back to session 101, What You Need to Know About Emotional Intelligence. Today's mood music is from Vivian Green, and it is Emotional Roller Coaster 2002. That was a good song. Sorry, y'all. I was really far away. Usually I have the thing in front of my face, so I'm trying to get used back to leaning forward. So I don't sound so far away.
It's easy for me because my mic is right here.
Yes, that torso is making it harder.
Hey, this is a crunch.
That's all right. I'll make it work.
All right, so let's get this started. All right, so we are going to be talking about emotional intelligence today, guys. I know you all have heard us say that word over and over and over again. So we're finally at the point where we're ready to tell you what it means. Y'all ready? All right. So I'm going to give you the definition first, and then I'll ask my infamous question. So emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. So my question is, why is emotional intelligence important?
You know, I think kind of off the top, one of the reasons that it is important is because it allows you to be able to work through a situation versus react. You know, we've talked before about reacting versus responding. It gives you opportunity to be able to respond to a situation in a much more logical, rational manner versus going with all, lizard brain.
Yeah.
I think it's important because throughout history, we have really focused on intelligence as a whole, cognitive intelligence versus emotional intelligence. And being in control of oneself is more an emotional aptitude thing versus a cognitive aptitude. It's part of it, but it's not something that we've really discussed as a whole society. It's just like, oh, you need to be stoic, like we've talked about before. You don't need to emote at all, or these people over here are too emotional. And really what it boils down to is knowing how to manage what you're feeling and being able to identify it. And that's just not something that people are well versed in. We're finding out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I agree with you, ladies. I would just add that emotional intelligence is a way of communicating. It's a way of socializing and evolving in relationships with other people, as well as the relationship that you should have with yourself. And I think emotional intelligence is important because what we found since we've been in this mental health field is that a lot of people only use probably 4 or 5 emotions to describe everything. And when you describe an incorrect emotion when you're having a conversation with someone, so if I tell Dr. Strickland that I'm angry with her, but I'm really disappointed in her, then she is going to focus on discussing the anger instead of the disappointment. And so therefore, if you identify the right emotion, the person, or you and the person can address the right emotion.
Hmm. I agree with that. Uh, and we've talked about this before in previous sessions where people are not taught emotional words.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a great background in the nuance of all the different types of feelings, the different levels of those feelings. So, rage is not the same as irritated,
Mm-hmm.
even though they fall under the same umbrella of feeling. They fall in kind of like the anger category, but they are not. I can't think of anybody that would see those two feelings and say that's an exact replica of one another.
No, because they're not.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then that's my next question is: can emotional intelligence be learned?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
I think we spend most of our time repeating ourselves. So please don't take that offensively. That is part of our job, is to be repetitive and talk with people about the same thing week after week. But I believe that is part of what we do, is teach people to first acknowledge that they're having a feeling,
Mm-hmm.
learn to identify what that feeling is, give it space, and then come up with a game plan.
Yeah. I do think we are born with some of that, but I think because, especially over here where we live, emotions are not seen as strengths, and so they are kind of repressed. They are not nurtured. Um, and then ultimately people become disconnected from them. So if we were more in tune with how we feel, how we think, and how our body responds to things, I think we would be able to be a more well-rounded human.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add to that, I think I do agree. We are born with it, but I think parents beat it out of us because it's like,
I can see that.
when kids cry or when they have an emotion, or I'll shut up or I'll give you something to cry about,
Mm-hmm.
or things like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, instead of having a conversation with a child, we only we threaten them to not have it.
Mm-hmm.
So we stunt that ability for those emotions to evolve.
Mm-hmm. I think we do that a lot with boys.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, this is changing, and there are outliers, of course. So this is a
Mm-hmm.
very watered down kind of generalization. But traditionally, I do think that we do that a lot with boys, and we foster. So we foster under emotion in boys, but over emotion in girls.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're much more verbal and face to face with girls, so they learn more words,
Mm-hmm.
but I still don't believe that we teach them how to manage that. What do you do with it? Yes, you have more, and you're given more freedom to be a little bit more hysterical on the extreme end. But we still don't give people, like you were saying, disappointment versus anger, or I feel unappreciated versus sad,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff.
And I think it's important to note that just because you are not showing your emotions, it doesn't mean that you are not emotional.
Mm-hmm.
There is a difference between emotional expression and, feeling your feels, feeling your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our society has told men that they cannot emotionally express anything other than anger, content,
Well, I think
a little happy.
Sadness at a funeral.
Yeah.
And
Well,
even that's minimal.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why men and women have such difficult times understanding each other and each other's emotions, because women on one hand is like, you just said that you hurt, but why are you going off and yelling?
Mm-hmm.
That looks like it's anger. And men are like, well, why are you crying? You just said that you was angry. So
Yeah.
like, we don't understand each other's emotions because a lot of people are not emotional intelligent.
Yeah.
Emotionally intelligent.
I think there is a lack of freedom to express your emotions in a way that is healthy for you. And oftentimes, individuals are ridiculed and demeaned if they are in touch with their emotions. Things like you're a crybaby, or
Mm-hmm.
you're always somewhere crying about something, or, things like
Mhm.
that. And I think emotions make a lot of people um, uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Yes,
And as there was a great song, emotions make you cry sometimes.
Mhm.
they
I
do.
digress.
They do.
But I think it is important to realize, like, you're not weak because you know how to utilize your emotions. You actually weaken yourself when you don't. When you
Mhm.
repress your emotions, that's when all kind of health issues pop up, and you have somatic symptoms, and things that are popping up in your body, and heart related problems, and
Mhm.
And you
high
become
blood pressure.
explosive.
Yeah, anybody got time for that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, where do you guys see like the biggest like breakdown is between understanding like the mind body connection? Because just thinking about what you were saying just a moment ago, that emotions build up and then they lead to um, physical symptoms, but a lot of people don't attribute that to an emotional reason.
Mm-hmm.
They it always gets boiled down to my diet, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm smoking, or
Mm-hmm.
things like that. I don't exercise enough.
Mm-hmm.
I
These are
think
all
it's the
symptoms.
and I think it's the misunderstanding of mental health. Like people really don't understand, which is why one, more people are not in mental health. I mean, in therapy, and then two, why people take their mental health so lightly,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't understand the connection, the holistic connection.
Yeah, you're not these parts separately. You're
Mm-hmm.
parts of a whole, your little gestalt in there. But
Mhm.
I think what's important to realize is that people have a issue with thinking their thoughts, feeling their feelings, and settling into their bodies. Tell somebody to watch. I'm trying to think of a movie. Tell somebody to watch, a really sad movie.
Oh,
They're gonna start
steel
still
magnolias.
Oh
magnolias.
God.
They're gonna start squirming. They're gonna get uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
They might start, like clearing their throat. They might get up and go to the bathroom. Like, it's all kind of stuff happening. Are you okay?
Mm.
Like, it's
Mhm.
okay to feel the sadness that these actors are portraying.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be sad.
Right.
If you're laughing, you might
Yes.
need a hold. You might need a
Mhm.
hold in a psychiatric ward or
Mm-hmm.
something. But I think that for me is one of the things that I see in my clients. And I want them to give breath. Like, take a moment and breathe. Give your emotions sound. Give your body the opportunity to express itself and not judge.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not even other people nowadays that are judging. It is us who judge ourselves so harshly.
Yeah.
And
I would
one of
agree.
the things that I have started teaching my clients is to allow yourself to spiral. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving you the tools for you to come out of the spiral. Now, some of them can only go halfway because if they go all the way, they're not coming back. So,
Mm-hmm.
you just go halfway. But some of them, I know, go all the way. Go all the way to down your spiral. And then I'm going to give you the tools for you to come out of it. But you got to make sure you use the tools.
Yeah.
Now we different therapists, okay? So the tools that Dr. Jones is talking about is different than what I'm talking about. My clients know they're not allowed to spiral.
Mm-hmm.
That because theirs be something else to be the unhealthy side of it.
Right, which is why I say some of mine, even mine, some of mine. That's why I have to. You have to know your client.
No,
Mm-hmm.
that is true.
So if you know that your client can't go all the way, don't.
Mm-mm.
You can go halfway, and then you can pick yourself back out of it. So that's fine. But again, that's why we teach. Don't do this if you don't have a therapist.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, I think also there's a difference between um, feeling your emotions and getting like lost in them. And I
Right.
think that's a
No, for
lot of
sure.
time what
Absolutely.
happens is
Right.
people, because they've been so detached for so long, or it's such a like a tidal wave, they don't know what to do with it. It overcomes them.
And see, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's and that's my point. Because when my clients actually do that, they realize that they're just feeling their feelings. They're not actually going down to this deep, dark hole that they can't get themselves out of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. I think another thing that we're really not good at is looking at the visuals of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. A lot of people don't know like what each one looks like.
Oh, God.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They know anger. We know what anger looks like because it's probably one thing that I talk about with my clients is that anger is probably the easiest feeling of them all.
Yep.
It's the quickest, and it's the most visual display. So it's fairly easy. Any of the anger umbrella feelings are usually easy for people to pick up on. But the other feelings, it's really hard for us to have a visual representation of what, horrified versus shocked
Mm-hmm.
versus surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Again, those are all in the same vein, but they don't all quite look exactly alike
Or feel the same.
or feel the same. I think, a lot of people struggle with, okay, so what am I seeing?
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to being emotionally intelligent on the external, we're not necessarily talking about the internal version of emotional intelligence. And when I'm looking at someone else and they are in a moment, am I able to process and perceive what I'm looking at accurately?
Yeah. And one of the things, so I did a speaking engagement on social emotional intelligence. And one of the examples that I gave them was Jasmine Sullivan. I busted windows out your car.
I bust the windows out your car.
That one. And so in the video, of course you can hear the lyrics, but in the video, she is busting windows out of the car. She looks mad when we obviously know because of what the song is about, you're hurt. So why do you look you actually look enraged. So why do you look enraged if you're hurt?
Yeah.
And that's how we confuse ourselves and we confuse our children.
Yeah.
Because they think that hurt is supposed to look enraged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A good example of that is the Acrimony movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it
Because
is.
she was struggling. And
She
it didn't have nothing to do with what was actually going on.
Mhm. Yeah, one thing when I'm working with clients and trying to teach them about like connecting what you see with what you're experiencing is I go through all the different iterations of I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
And like I will, kind of act out different types of I'm fine and ask them, so what did you see in all of those different versions? If I say I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. All of those are very different. I'm saying I'm saying the exact same two words.
Yeah.
Of course, in session I get way more animated than that.
Yeah.
But like, what did you see? I said the exact same thing. Nothing in the two words I said changed, but every one of those communicated something very different to you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see and experience me visually, what is the information that you're taking? How are you interpreting this experience?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be able to take that and carry that over into your other relationships. When you are talking with your spouse or talking with your children, are you paying attention to what you are seeing, whether they're crossing their arms, whether they are rolling their eyes, huffing and puffing, shifting in their chair? All of that is information for an emotionally intelligent person to be able to use and either diffuse the situation, either support the person through whatever it is they're going through, or redirect, whatever the case is calling for. But if you don't have a good
Gauge.
Yes, you're going to consistently be met with frustration and kind of like rebound
And feeling like having the person to feel like you're dismissing them.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just really struggle with that clarity of what it is that they are feeling. You've heard us say that we oftentimes give our clients like a sheet of emotions or have them do like a mood journal or, just something.
I'm sorry. We should probably attach our feeling sheet that we get because, it's the one with the body sensations at the bottom of it. We probably should attach that to our notes so that the interns will have that.
Yeah. That's good.
I'm sorry, Dr.
No,
Wall, I
no, no,
interrupted
no.
you.
Chemo brain is gone now. I don't know.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're okay.
But yes, Dr. Wall was saying that, we often give our clients a feeling sheet. And the feeling sheet I believe we all use is the feelings at the top, and then they have the body sensations at the bottom.
I
And
think they all different.
Yeah.
We all
They're-
use them. Yeah.
Yeah, the one I use mostly does high, medium, and low for each feeling category.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the one that I use because it teaches people how the feeling and attach the physical sensation to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good for people on the spectrum, but I think it's good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll make
That's
sure and get
helpful.
those into the description sometime this week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I do also, it's important to realize that this is still a very new area
Mm-hmm.
of, we're just going to call it psychology or mental health, emotional health, or whatever you want to call it, because the phrase was only coined in 1990. So
Yeah.
it is one of our newer areas of study. So people are really unpacking that, trying to figure out what it looks like. And that's why you hear everybody talking about emotional intelligence. You hear everybody talking about, what are you feeling like? What is your body telling you? Like all of these things that may seem real woo-woo or whatever. That's real phrase. If you know about Strengths Builder. So it may not be really comfortable, especially in our Black and Brown communities, because we've been taught so long to not express any emotions because we want to always seem very poised.
But you have to remember where that's
Comes.
coined.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
where it comes from, because it's not healthy.
Yeah.
And we are having to unlearn a lot of things that were not meant for our good.
Yeah. Because emotions are tied to creativity.
Mhm.
It's, tied to relationship building.
Leadership.
Yeah. I mean, if you're living, you have emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, like we said before, whether you understand those emotions or not is a different thing, but you have them. They are always going to be present.
And if you're not aware of them, it can affect you in many areas of your life.
Yeah.
School, work,
Mm-hmm.
relationship. I mean, if you're a leader, it can affect you as a leader because you can't recognize either when your employee is having a difficult day, a difficult time with this task. If they are feeling like they are achieving a task, you don't even recognize it. So that's going to be important for many people in many areas of your life.
Yeah. And it also keeps you from being able to recognize your own shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a good gauge of self-assessing on, am I contributing to this problem?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you always have the need to feel like you're right or that you're never wrong, like that's just not going to really propel you in the direction that you want to go. You're going to struggle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You really are going to struggle. And at the end of the day, if we're all about growth and moving forward, how is that a deficit?
Yeah.
Being wrong is not bad.
Mm-mm.
It's just like, oh, okay.
Well, it's just the same as being rejected is not bad.
Right.
It feels, horrible and hurtful at the time.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment, it can be. I was gonna say embarrassing. It can be shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Because you really, I thought I had that in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have an ability to, again, self-assess you assess a situation, you can then, take that information, digest it, use it, and move forward. And then when you're presented with a similar situation in the future, I know how to maneuver and adjust in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that also helps you to understand that everybody is different. So everybody that you have in your life, not that you have to change, but you do have to perhaps adjust how you, let's just say, confront a situation.
Mm-hmm.
The way I confront Dr. Strickland about something may not be the same way I can confront Dr. Wall, because they have two different personalities.
Mhm.
They have two different emotional intelligence. So I have to, address it differently. Now the same with them. They have to do us each. We have to do each other differently because we all have different personalities.
Right.
Mhm.
So, what do y'all see as some of the like? Because while we're talking about emotional intelligence in the healthy, positive way,
Mhm.
do you see any drawbacks or pitfalls to emotional intelligence?
I think oftentimes people get on these buzzwords and they're like, I have arrived.
Hmm.
And one thing that I learned from Dr. Bob Barnes at Hardin Simmons University is that you can't be the person that confers your arrival.
Mm-hmm.
Other people have to confer that. And so
Okay.
if there is not a measure, a representation of your arrival, have you really done that?
Okay.
I think that is one of the downfalls that I see, because people, like I was saying earlier, want to be right. They want to be the best. They want to be all these things, but they're not actually always doing the work to be healthy. It's just more like, oh, I'm putting on this suit, this costume to appear this way, but really I'm trash.
Man, that part. Man. I would say that you have people who overwhelm themselves with trying to be so perfect at being
Mhm.
emotionally intelligent.
The rigidity.
And it's like they're always shocked at I got that wrong. And so because they get so overwhelmed with, oh, I'm working on me, I'm working on me, I'm working on my intelligence, I'm working on my emotions, and I'm tired just saying it.
Gotcha. I think it can lead people to be manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I know how to, again, if I can perceive you correctly, then I know how to move around you,
Mm-hmm.
and I know how to use your emotions to my advantage. So I think very highly emotionally intelligent people have the potential, of course, it's not a guarantee, but have the potential to be narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, and then use people in a way that benefits them.
Yeah.
Because intention, it does not equate with how much you know. Emotional intelligence is not always going to be used for good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If my intention is to be abusive or hurtful or get over on people, then I'm going to need to be emotionally intelligent and understand thought processes, understand emotional displays, understand communication patterns, being able to pick up on these things,
I'm an
because
artist.
it makes me much more savvy, able to blend in kind of the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it can be used for manipulative purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Like subterfuge, spies,
Yes.
all those things. They utilize behavioral sciences,
Mm-hmm.
which emotional intelligence falls under the category of that. So it is important to have your head on a little bit of a swivel, not be paranoid, but if something doesn't feel right, more times than not, it's probably not right.
And then you have those people also who are highly emotionally intelligent that they're always looking for something. Like Monk. Y'all know I love Monk.
Yeah.
But like Monk, it's like they're always looking for something. So you can't relax around them because they always think you're either up to something. They're always trying to read you. That's why when people always ask us, like, what do you do for a living? And we say we're mental health, we're therapists. And they're like, oh, you trying to read? I promise you, we're not trying to read
I'm
you
tired.
at
You're analyzing me.
all. Mm-mm.
I promise I'm not.
Mm-mm.
First of all,
I hadn't even thought about it actually.
Right.
I'm on break right now.
Right.
My brain is asleep.
Right. Because if you call me doctor, then I got to wake up and then you're going to have to take your checkbook out. Your card out.
Very true. Well, I was just wondering, because we've been kind of heading the very healthy end,
Yeah.
And how do people use that in an unhealthy way? Because you got to give both ends of that
Yeah.
spectrum.
So how can people improve their emotional intelligence?
Therapy.
Number one, stunner.
First.
Right. We can hang up now.
Hmm.
I think
Well, first get you a good therapist first, though.
Mhm.
that
Not
fits
all
you.
therapists are created equal.
Right. And all therapists are not created equal, but it may not be because they're a bad therapist. It may just not be the good fit for you.
Mhm.
Because I know I'm not everybody's taste, and I'm okay with that.
Hmm. But there are some highly unethical therapists
Yes.
out there.
That's not me. That's not me.
But I would say that first, once you found a person that is a fit for you and is, doing the work, that would be a good avenue.
Mhm.
Mhm. I mean, I think one of the main things that you're going to focus on is that self-awareness that we were talking about earlier. Because if you don't have that, then how are you going to be able to gain that clarity of what the emotion is that you're feeling, properly express that? Those things are important. Self-awareness, like that is something we have been preaching since
Mhm.
session 1.
Yeah.
And we in session 101 now. So a lot of people are afraid to pick their own brains.
Mhm.
Their feelings are scary to them, their mind is scary to them. And ultimately, we are the people who have control over that, which leads me to the second thing, which is self regulation. But, all of these things are working together in order for you to be able to show up the way you want to show up.
Hmm. Absolutely. I was thinking something kind of similar to what you were saying, like asking yourself questions, not being afraid to, you know, when you ask one question, okay, then take that next question a little bit deeper, and then take the next one a little bit deeper. The term for that, here's your quick Psycho 101, that's called Socratic questioning. But when you just keep asking and you just keep going, eventually you will reach a point where you have a kind of aha moment. And from there, you can start talking about behavioral changes and like implementation and things like that.
And I would add, develop and maintain good relationships. And you do that by communicating clearly with the people that you're with. Inspire people, and influence people, and allow yourself to be influenced. Like you can, when you begin to have a reciprocal relationship, a healthy reciprocal relationship, that is you also being able to do those things like self-regulate, being self-aware, and making sure you're able to ask the Socratic questions, because that's how you have a dialogue. That's how you get to know one another.
I think another part of what Dr. Jones Hine is saying is that conflict resolution or healthy fair fighting, as we like to say. Because you're going to fight, you're going to argue, y'all different people and things of that nature. But if you don't know how to resolve something, if you can't be solution focused, it's just about me, or you wrong and I'm right, and all these other kinds of things. And that inability to be flexible is not a sign of emotional intelligence. It's a sign of rigidity. It's a sign of a closed mind, not an openness in your brain. And that's not to say somebody has to come and like change your beliefs and values. We're not talking about that. We're talking about your ability to emote properly.
And I think people have to also understand that when you are even if it's a healthy argument, both of you have contributed to this conversation. So you also have to look at your part in, or percentage of what you brought into this conversation. Dr. Strickland, I always like to say, it's not 50-50. It's no.
It ain't 100-0 and it ain't 50-50. It's very rare that you have that clean of a percentage.
But that doesn't mean that both people still don't have a percentage. And whatever your percentage is, it doesn't matter. You still have to take responsibility for that.
Yeah, I agree.
There's an importance in owning your stuff.
Oh, yes.
Because if you don't, you end up having, you're not perceiving your world correctly. And as we have talked about before, perception is reality, unfortunately. And sometimes your perception is skewed. And you're going to run with that narrative until the day you die or somebody knock you upside your head.
Zoom in. As I look at the camera. absolutely. But yeah, I think all of those things are important. I agree with everything that you guys said, and I have nothing to add.
Okay.
All right. And you guys know we always end off with a quote. And this one is brought to you by
One of her faves.
Our fave.
Yes, Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom.
Now, y'all gonna have to run that one back. So when y'all on YouTube, hit that 10-second button that goes back and rewinds that, because you're gonna have to run that one a couple times because it's deep.
Yes.
So,
but while you're rewinding it back, comment, like, share, and subscribe.
All of that. See y'all next session.
Must be this volume control.
So, okay, interns, process your notes. Be sure to catch us next session and find us on all major platforms at the Recycled Podcast. If you're a new intern, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share.
Thanks for listening. And remember, we are shifting and reshaping our psyche through healing conversations and connections, one discussion at a time.